like, yeah, last week we lost one of our big rock stars. David Bowie has left the planet. So my favorite quote from him is like, I'm not sure where I'm going from here, but for sure it won't be boring. So let's try to do that. So let's talk a bit data complexity. So we've heard about IoT, industrial IoT, and people talking about end-to-end solutions. And to develop a truly IoT solutions, like the deeper you look into, like where is the end, right? You do, data to the cloud, now data to analytics, now data to analytics to decision-making system, then to business system, then it never ends. So long story short, you need a lot of partners, companies working together to create a solution. And especially in industrial IoT, it's a bit of it's the Wild West. Standards are just beginning to emerge. Into operation is a lot of elbow grease. And so can't have a jack of all trades. You actually have to be good at something to bring value to this game, right? And since we're talking complexity, here's an example of a really complex system. CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, biggest sensor ever built in the world, 5 stories tall, named Atlas. 4,000 physicists have worked together. So talking complexity and making things difficult to pull it off, it is possible. It takes about 15 years. Where do we go from here? We see collaboration. Why is it so important to us? In systems in the military, we hear all the time, it needs to be smaller, cheaper, less power, more compute, easy to deploy. So this is an example of a collaboration with ADLink and Alma, and we have created a system that's actually not built for a program. It's built as a product. So this is basically a vehicular communication system as a COTS product. The core is an off-the-shelf Comm Express, so basically best in industry now goes military as the COTS idea worked in the beginning. So with the ADLink Comm Express module that tops out at 85C, the chassis could meet the required 71C ambient temperature requirements. Also, it features Cisco IO software, which has established itself as kind of the de facto standard, and it's used in multiple areas. Second case of working together collaboration is what's called the portable man-pack radio. And it's not just, applies not only to military, it applies to all areas where you have no communication, where basically you're in a dead zone. This could be disaster areas, fires, earthquakes, floodings. Basically, your normal infrastructure breaks down, it disappears. Your cell tower goes down, and then our little cell phones are pretty useless. So LCR, one of our partners, and they're also here today, have developed a man-pack that combines various parts of off-the-shelf to create and software and to create a truly portable LTE network. So basically, this is I think 20-ish pounds. So it can be worn by a single person. It creates a local LTE network. It runs off batteries. They're hot swappable, so you can have continued operation. And it's built with an ADLink Comm Express using another partner's Connectech, their ruggedized carrier board, and then basically combining building with standard building blocks and creating this highly ruggedized solution. So why do we talk about this? Because it's about partners. So the benefit in the partnership from what we see in the go-to-market is you work with players that you know, and they know what they're doing, and it's you know who to talk to, you know how they work, you know how they operate. There's a high level of trust and basically speed of cooperating. You don't have to learn who's who in the zoo again and again. ADLink just turned 20 for those of you who did not see the newsletter. ADLink was turned 20 in September. And since day one, ADLink we're involved in the standards. And that goes, as you can see, across the board. Our tagline is usually, we don't implement standards, we help write them. And it goes across from various PICMGs, VIDA, so on and so forth. And there's a couple of new ones in the brewing, and we'll talk to you about that in the briefings. We talked about data, and that there's more data going around. So actually, Lieutenant General David Deptula said in 2010, get that, we find ourselves in not too distant future swimming in sensors and drowning in data. I think we are past that point already. In military communications, there's a wide number of point-to-point. And that point-to-point is very similar to device-to-cloud. So there's a little bit of an analogy happening there. It's the same problem. There's a lot of data that needs to be in many places quickly, because make it as real-time as you can, especially when there's lives dependent on it. Like if if a cooling engine at some factory goes down, that may be okay for an hour or so, but there is more time-critical data out there. So what happens in the military, they go from data to decisions. Like it's not just bringing the data together, so make it actionable. And what I find interesting, we have the same drive and the same underlying current in the IoT world. It's like you have all this data now, and so what? What do you do with it? How can you make this data actionable and drive decisions with that? But it sounds much easier than it is, because you need to have the data everywhere. There is a couple upcoming standards, OMG, DDS, and right now we're focusing on DDS, Distributed Data Service. It's an open standard. One of the recent ADLink acquisitions company, PrismTech, based in the UK. They are one of the #1 provider in that technology. And interesting enough, the majority of implementations of that technology is in military. The reason for that is that it combines both well. It brings you what's called fog computing. Basically, that's all the devices on the edge can mesh network together and change data, and they can change it to the cloud. And it's in near real time. So you have very low latency from device to device, meaning like if you have like units in the field, but you also have relatively low latency from the device or the fog to the cloud. So in the big context of in the military data-driven decision-making, I think this is a very critical element in that, and it was also one of the reasons that ADLink is going into that area, that software can transport the data in a near real-time fashion.